Professional tennis began to gather momentum after the First World War. Initially the pro ranks were made up almost exclusively of tennis coaches. Because they made money from the game, they were unable to compete in the Grand Slams. The most significant moment occurred at the end of 1926, when C.C. Pyle signed a group of leading amateurs to play a series of matches across America. In 1927 the first U.S. Pro Championships was held in New York, and over the next 40 years this tournament and the other major pro events would showcase many of the best male players in the world. By the 1950s the majority of the top players were pro, and the Grand Slams were struggling for credibility. The amateur and pro split ended when the British LTA announced that the 1968 Wimbledon would be open. This ushered in the Open era, and the Grand Slams instantly regained their preeminence and have remained ever since the jewels in tennis crown. Vincent Richards was the first marquee amateur player to turn professional at the end of 1926. Soon a worthy challenger to Richards emerged, the Czech Karel Kozeluh, who had been a professional for many years. At the end of 1930 Bill Tilden became the first Grand Slam men's singles champion to turn professional. He faced Kozeluh in a head-to-head tour. It became a feature of professional tennis that the leading amateur would turn professional and take on the professional champion in a series of matches across the United States, and later the world. The winner of the series would be crowned pro champion. After beating Kozeluh, Tilden then beat the German Hans Sneuslein. In 1934 the 41-year-old Tilden lost to the more youthful Ellsworth Vines. Vines won tours in 1935 and 1936 against Lester Stephen. In 1937 Vines took on Fred Perry, and in one of the most closely fought World Championships Series tours, came out on top 32-29. Vines beat Perry again in 1938. In 1939 Don Budge, fresh from his 1938 Grand Slam, beat Vines and Perry. Budge beat the veteran Tilden in 1941. In 1942 Budge beat Bobby Riggs, Frank Kovacs, Perry, and Stephen. After World War II ended, Budge was past his prime and lost a close series to Riggs in 1946, 24-22. In 1948 Jack Kramer beat Riggs comfortably. This was the last time a player would leave the amateur ranks and become pro champion the next year. From now on the seasoned pros would always prove superior to the newcomers from the amateur ranks. In 1949-50 Kramer proved his dominance over a young Pancho Gonzales. The following year Kramer beat Pancho Segura. In 1953 Kramer beat Frank Sedgman and retired from playing regularly, the only man never to lose a World Championship Series tour. Gonzales took his place and beat Segura and Sedgman in 1954, Tony Drabbett in 1955-6, Ken Rosewall in 1957, Lou Hoad in 1958, Hoad, Ashley Cooper and Mal Anderson in 1959, Rosewall, Segura and Alex Olmedo in 1960 and Andres Gimeno, Drabbett, Hoad, Barry Mackay, Olmedo and Butch Buchholz in 1961. Gonzales then retired for over a year, and when he returned he was no longer the number one pro, a mantle he had held for 8 years. Rosewall dominated the 1963 tour, beating Rod Laver, Buchholz, Gimeno, Mackay, and Luis Ayala. By now a full schedule of pro events meant the World Championship Series was no longer required. Rosewall remained the top pro in 1964, but in 1965, 1966 and 1967, Laver was the dominant player. As Open tennis arrived, Laver continued his dominance, winning the first Open calendar year Grand Slam in 1969. Professional tennis attracted huge crowds. 17,630 spectators watched the opening match of the first Vines-Perry Tour, which was a record for an indoor tennis match until King played Riggs in 1973. 17,000 turned up to see the opening of the Budge Vines tour. Even when a huge snowstorm hit New York on the opening night of the Kramer Riggs tour, over 15,000 people turned out to see the match, many arriving at the venue on foot. Stadiums in Australia were packed for the opening matches of the Gonzales and Hoad tour, with many setting attendance records. When discussing the greatest players of all time, the results of the major pro events should never be forgotten, but sadly often are.